What is up, boys and girls? Londrick here now. I'm back for another edition of Lundrick's Fave 5. So, Survivor Series is just a few weeks away. We've got a couple of matches announced. So, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to have Survivor Series related videos. Coming up first is going to be Fave 5 matches of Survivor Series, non-elimination matches. So, the title says I'm going to put that in brackets, non-elimination. So, the 5-on-5, 4-on-4 elimination matches are going to be next week. Then the week after that will be Survivor Series shows. And if I've got time, I might fit in a Fave 5 War Games match as well, because obviously before Survivor Series we've got NXT TakeOver War Games. So before I get into the Fave 5, let's rattle off a few honourable mentions. Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund in 1994. As a matter of fact, you can probably consider that number 6, because I did have that. Then I forgot about another match that I wanted in there as well. Shawn Michaels versus Psycho Sid, 1996. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H versus John Cena, 2009. Undertaker versus Batista, Hell in a Cell, 2007. But enough about honourable mentions, let's get to the actual list. Coming in number 5, we're going back to 2007. And an interesting match for the WWE Championship, Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels, with some very cool stipulations, and which led to a really cool match. So, stipulations were, Shawn Michaels could not use the Sweet Chin music in this match at all. If he used the Sweet Chin music, the match would be stopped, Shawn would be disqualified, and Orton would keep the title. But on the flip side, if Randy Orton did or appear to attempt to deliberately get himself disqualified, the title would go to Shawn Michaels. So, obviously 2007, one of those bad year, really bad year in my opinion. Obviously, the whole Benoit tragedy really dampened things. And that was a year that pretty much nearly every top guy got injured at some point. I mean, you had people like Shawn Michaels got injured, The Undertaker, Edge, John Cena got injured, Triple H, Rey Mysterio. Although Rey Mysterio was coming on from 2006. I think Booker T was out for a while. Mr. Kennedy got injured. Lashley got injured. Pretty much the only two that didn't was Batista and Randy Orton. But overall, I'm not a big fan of the 2007 WWE product at all. Thought it was a bad time. But there were some shining lights, and Randy Orton's main event push was one of them. So, they originally pushed Orton 3 years earlier, back at SummerSlam 2004. As you might have heard, he was the youngest world champion of all time. But for various reasons, it didn't quite work out. Obviously, the face turn was a bit botched, and then Orton had maturity issues and things like that. And they tried to push him a couple of more times. But of course, things just got in the way, like injuries, but mainly it was down to Orton's maturity levels. And then 2007, he finally got the ball rolling. So, this particular rivalry started way back at Judgment Day, because again, this is where Shawn Michaels needed a knee operation, so they did a thing where they had Orton concuss him, and I believe this thing with Shawn Michaels was the debut of the punt that Orton used to do. You know, the one I want about, the one where he just kicked him in the head. So Shawn Michaels did a magnificent job of selling it, went off injured. And then I kind of consider this time period the start of the Viper persona, because before that, Randy had been the legend killer and all that. But now he'd been around for a while. He's a lot more established, and it was time to change his character. And he changed his character to a more dangerous, psychotic legend killer. Got into a feud with John Cena over the summer. Then, of course, Cena went down for injury in October. And then Orton took over as the WWE Champion. In quite a memorable time at No Mercy, when he lost the title to Triple H. And then won it back by the end of the night. So Orton was now the champion. But he needed a fresh opponent. And then that led to Shawn Michaels coming back, going after Randy Orton. And then there you go. You had a feud. Orton versus Shawn Michaels. That then led to a match at Cyber Sunday, where Randy Orton got himself disqualified. But the main thing about this feud, various times Shawn Michaels hit the super kick on Randy Orton out of nowhere, knocking Orton out. So it was really sold as a dangerous move. And I believe Shawn hit the super kick post-match of Cyber Sunday as well. But I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. So that led to these big stipulations of Shawn Michaels banned from using the super kick, but Orton damn sure better not look like he's trying to get himself disqualified either. So that instantly made an interesting match, because obviously if Shawn can't use a super kick, his finishing move, he's going to have to find other ways to beat Orton. Now, I watched this match just a few days ago just to get a little refresher on it, and what an amazing story told, to be fair. I mean, this is a great example of how good Shawn Michaels was in his second run. So back in his first run, Shawn was obviously a super athlete and all that, going and flying around the ring and stuff. But now Shawn was the older guy. I think Shawn Michaels' big thing now is his wrestling brain and his knack of storytelling. So it was like Shawn Michaels was wrestling at a slow pace, which is very interesting, because obviously Shawn was now the older guy. I think he's like 15 years older than Orton. So it was just a really good wrestling match, like an actual wrestling match, you know. A really good technical match. Obviously now Shawn couldn't use a super kick, so he started using other moves, mainly submission moves. I think the first one he used is the ankle lock, which is kind of interesting, because Kurt Angle was the top star in TNA at the time. And then he used the sharpshooter, which is like really good. He used a sharpshooter on the 10th anniversary of Montreal, seriously. But he did. And then he used the crippler cross, which I'm not going to lie, that one kind of rubbed me up the wrong way a little bit, because this was about 5 months after the Benoit tragedy, and you're having a guy using the crippler crossface, really. I just thought it was a bit fresh, you know. There was loads of great spots where Shawn instinctively was going to try and use a super kick, but he hesitated and he couldn't do it. And I also thought this was definitely the best run of Randy Orton's career. That WWE title reign from the end of 2007 into 2008. Orton was awesome in this match as well. But the finish I thought was absolutely fantastic. Again, Shawn Michaels, out of instinct, obviously, went for the super kick, but had to stop himself before he hit it. And that split second where he stopped was just enough time for Randy Orton to hit an RKO to get the clean victory. And this is definitely an stature-enhancing victory for Orton, I feel, definitely. Beat a legend like Shawn Michaels at a major pay-per-view like Survivor Series, clean as well. That was important. I mean, it would have been kind of crap if Orton just got a cheap-ass victory, but no, Shawn Michaels put Randy Orton over clean, and this is coming off the back of beating Triple H the previous month. That definitely boosts Orton's credibility. So I feel like after a couple of stop-starts, Randy Orton was now a permanent top guy, and he was a top guy for a long time. You could argue he's maybe not such a top guy now, but yeah, really awesome match. I mean, it's definitely one of, if not the best match in modern Survivor Series, and by that, we're obviously from since then till now, just really awesome match. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Now, coming at number 4, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. The most Montreal, Canada, without a doubt, the most controversial night in the history of this business. Whoa, back up. Let's just back up a second. Wrong Survivor Series. Sorry about that. Not Survivor Series 1997. Because just when you think of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels Survivor Series, you always think of Montreal. But 5 years earlier, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels also a main event Survivor Series. But this was just a match. There's no controversy. Nobody was going to WCW. Nobody was refusing to do any jobs. There was no politics involved. This was just a straight up match on the main event of a pay-per-view. So this is kind of interesting, really, when you think looking back. So 1992, it's really a transitional year for the WWF. Obviously, the steroid trial had taken effect. Top stars were leaving, and Vince was trying to build up a new generation now. This is kind of interesting what the card looked like originally. So, originally when this match was announced, way back at either late September or early October, it was actually announced as Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels having a match at Survivor Series. But it was just a match, no titles on the line or anything. Because at the time the match was announced, neither guy had a title. And then a few interesting things happened in the company. Probably one of the biggest transitions ever in the history of the company, really, because obviously the main event was supposed to be the Ultimate Maniacs, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior versus Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. And we're supposed to have an Intercontinental title match on this show with the British Bulldog defend the title against the Mountie. So some crazy stuff happening in a really short period of time. Late October, Bret Hart beat Ric Flair to become the World Wrestling Federation champion. Obviously, Vince was looking for a new top guy, and obviously he had to be a guy who obviously wasn't on steroids because of all the attention with the steroid scandal coming up and all that. So traditionally in the past, big juiced up muscle heads such as Sid, Hulk Hogan, all those guys were headliners, but obviously that couldn't be the case now with all the attention on the steroid thing. And Bret was really in the right place at the right time, and I think he was the right guy to take on that role at the time. And so now Bret is finally the World Wrestling Federation champion after being the tag division for a long time. Then he rose up with the Intercontinental title. Now he was a world champion, and then in a period of a couple of days, because Vince found out that Davey Boy Smith and the Ultimate Warrior were getting human growth hormone from a dealer in the UK. Obviously, that time the feds were on Vince's arse, so Vince's hands were tied. In a matter of a couple of days, both the Ultimate Warrior and the British Bulldog were both fired from the WWF. But on the way out, Davey Boy had to drop the Intercontinental title to Shawn Michaels at Saturday Night Main Event in early November. And then obviously Warrior getting fired, that led to Mr. Perfect coming out of retirement, turning face the team with Macho Man. So now you had the World Wrestling Federation champion Bret Hart facing the Intercontinental champion Shawn Michaels in the main event of Survivor Series. Now obviously only Bret's world titles on the line, Shawn's Intercontinental title was not. So obviously now you've got a champion versus champion main event, and that just made it a lot more interesting. Now there's a lot of similarities between these two men. They both came into the company as undersized guys, which is kind of ironic now, because obviously Bret's like 6 foot, 230 pounds. Shawn was about 6'1", about 220, 225. And back in those days, that was considered small. I mean, you just look at where wrestling is now, with people like AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan and all that, and other guys. But back in those days, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were considered smaller guys. Just kind of ironic where the business has gone now. Then obviously they both made a name in tag teams. Shawn with the Rockers, Bret with the Hart Foundation. And they both broke away from those tag team partners and forged singles careers. And here they are. Obviously they had various matches throughout 1992 after Shawn turned heel. Probably most famously having the first ladder match in company history on the old Smack 'em Whack 'em Coliseum home video, which is now on the WWE Network if you want to check those out. So they had a few really good Intercontinental title matches. I mean, obviously 1992, probably in-ring performance wasn't as important as it is probably now. But really then, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and then maybe Flair and Savage as well, were definitely the best performers in the company. So, and now obviously they're going to get the main event spot, which was cool because I think they could have easily had the Savage and Perfect versus Flair and Razor match main event, and I don't think anyone would mind. But it was just really cool that now these two guys were getting the main event spot. Obviously, this was no, it wasn't. I was about to say it was Bret's first pay-per-view main event, but he main event at SummerSlam with Davey Boy Smith a few months ago. And obviously this was Shawn Michaels' first singles pay-per-view main event, because he had actually main evented the Survivor Series back in '89 on the Ultimate Warriors team. So this was a really good, obviously a big transition in the company now. Vince was getting away from the old steroid monsters of the past, where basically they had you know what I'm on about, the typical WWF big man formula. Now Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had to change that formula. And for me, they absolutely knocked it out the park. They had a near 30-minute match, which was highly technical, highly athletic, told a great story. I mean, both guys looked tremendous coming out of this. And I feel it was just so fresh after years of Hulkamania and the Ultimate Warrior style matches and all that. And now you're kind of getting a different style of match. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this match. I mean, a lot of people consider this their best match because I think a lot of people I think there's a lot of people out there who don't like the Iron Man match, and that's fine. I mean, it's all about opinions, right? I mean, I disagree. I think the Iron Man match is still the best one. I mean, I'm in the camp of loving that Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12, but this is a great match as well. And obviously, interesting story of Shawn having nothing to lose really, with his title not being on the line and Brett's being on the line. So obviously Shawn came close to winning the title a couple of times, but in a great spot. Obviously they copied this spot at WrestleMania 12 as well. Shawn went for a dropkick off the ropes, Brett caught the legs, took him over in the sharpshooter, then Shawn Michaels submitted. So there you go. It wasn't that nice, guys. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels just having a nice match in the main event of Survivor Series. No controversy, no double crosses, no politics, nothing like that. So, yeah, if you want to watch a Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels match that's not the Iron Man match, I would definitely recommend this being the one to check out if you haven't seen it. So, Bret and Shawn coming in number 4. Coming in number 3. Survivor Series 2002, and the debut of this little match called the Elimination Chamber. That's right. I mean, I imagine a lot of people of a certain age, like early 20s, probably have this as the number 1 match, because that's what they grew up with, and that's fine, but I usually go for the matches I grew up with, and of course, as I've explained before, this is a subjective list, not an objective list, so I'll put this one at number 3. I mean, obviously, could easily be number 1, but number 3 ain't a bad spot either, is it? So, you got for the World Heavyweight title, the first ever Elimination Chamber, Madison Square Garden, 6 Raw superstars, the World Heavyweight Champion, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, versus Chris Jericho, versus Booker T, versus Rob Van Dam, and versus Kane. So, a great cast of characters there. Obviously, 2002 Raw, where I don't want to talk too much about that. I think I've ragged on Raw in 2002 in the past, so no need to do that. But the simple story is, obviously the brand split started out with an undisputed champion, and that undisputed champion would go to Raw and SmackDown. He appear on both shows, basically. Then, obviously, Brock Lesnar wins the title at SummerSlam, and then Brock Lesnar signs an exclusive deal with SmackDown, decides he's not going to compete on Raw. He's going to take the WWE title and compete exclusively on SmackDown. So this put Eric Bischoff in a bit of a pickle. He didn't have a world champion on his brand now. So what did Bischoff do? He created his own championship, kind of. So what he did, obviously WWE bought WCW the year prior. So they got all their assets, and that included the belt. And that, of course, included the iconic big gold belt, the old NWA/WCW World Heavyweight Championship belt. So it had been used on WWE TV in 2001 as well. And they retired the belt after, because even Chris Jericho's Undisputed Championship, he walked around with that belt. So after Triple H won it, they scrapped the 2 belts and brought out a new belt. But obviously, that WCW belt was just sat in the warehouse somewhere, I'm guessing. So they brought it back. And was just going to simply call it the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, I know I've said this before, but obviously in this brand split, I would have much rather just brought back the World Heavyweight title and created a horrible red Universal title. But anyway, then, I'll say quite controversially, Triple H was just awarded the championship in September 2002. Not won the title, no tournament, no battle royal, no match. Just Triple H is the world champion now. Great. Fantastic. Woohoo! Let's go Triple H. So, obviously this is really the start of the dreaded Reign of Terror, which I don't want to have a big video about that right now. Maybe I will in the future, but not now, because obviously if I wanted to, I could probably talk about an hour just on that title reign. Then obviously coming off the back of this was SummerSlam 2002. Shawn Michaels' big return against Triple H, and after the match, Triple H hit Shawn Michaels in the back with a sledgehammer, and it was sort of like Triple H had ended Shawn Michaels' career. He'd fucked him up. Shawn was back in a wheelchair. This was done. Then obviously Triple H went to have his little title reign, going through Rob Van Dam and Unforgiven, and then the whole angle of Kane over Katie Vick, but you know what? I'm not going to go there again. I've gone there before. We're not going to go there again. So now, obviously, what I did like about this period, they actually like built Raw and SmackDown in competition with each other. They saw that the GMs, Bischoff and Stephanie, were constantly trying to outdo each other, which that's just smart, isn't it? Really. You got Raw and SmackDown, so why not have the GMs try to compete with each other, try to have the better show? Prior for No Mercy, SmackDown had Undertaker Brock Lesnar Hell in a Cell match, so, and obviously kayfabe wise, Eric Bischoff is credited for creating this little thing called the Elimination Chamber, but details were really sketchy at the start. Like he was told that it would have elements of Hell in a Cell, War Games, Survivor Series and Royal Rumble, so what that quite meant no one was really sure, but the premise was there's going to be 6 guys competing for the World Heavyweight Championship, elimination style, last man standing. So, and then you got to give it up to WWE. So, and they were in the Madison Square Garden as well. And obviously Shawn Michaels makes his comeback. I think it was in what was WWE New York or the World now. He was doing a promo on there. Then he got out of his chair, showed Triple H that he was fully recovered, and he was coming back for revenge, and he was coming back for the World Heavyweight title. Because I think Shawn Michaels' comeback was, there weren't major plans for that. It was good. They were going to have that match at SummerSlam, then you're going to see how it went. But of course, SummerSlam, it went fantastically well, so they thought, well, let's give Shawn this other match and see how it goes. So Shawn was put in the Elimination Chamber. Then you got to give, obviously, I would say probably these 6 guys were probably the best 6 guys to choose at the time. You obviously had Chris Jericho, former world champion, Kane, obviously talented big guy, obviously being in and out of the main event scene pretty much since he debuted. Rob Van Dam, obviously very, very over guy, recently had world title matches with Triple H. And Booker T, who was really starting to come to his own as a babyface of the WWE. So, and then to do it in the Madison Square Garden too. I mean, obviously the Madison Square Garden's video is going to come up again, but just, yeah, Madison Square Garden is a magical city, really, magical building. Yeah, just something magical about that. And then obviously the intrigue of this new match called the Elimination Chamber. What was it going to entail? So before the match, we saw the structure, and my God, what a magnificent structure! I mean, you got to give it up to WWE. They built this Elimination Chamber. They absolutely nailed it first time. I mean, it just looked perfect. I mean, probably wasn't perfect to work on. It was probably quite painful, but from a visual standpoint, it looks fantastic. So now, so the rules were simple. There was 6 guys, but there was going to be four pods. 4 superstars would go into these pods, and 2 guys would start the match. Then a 5-minute period would elapse. Then the pod would empty, open, and then a guy would come out, make it a freeway, and that would go on. So every 5 minutes, someone would come out the pod. Then until all 6 men had been introduced in the match, and after that, basically survived with the fittest, elimination rules, last man standing as a world heavyweight champion. So you look at this, could they pull this off first time? And for me, it was an absolutely resounding yes. I mean, there were a few hiccups, but this was an amazing match. I mean, really, it's got to be one of the best debuts of a gimmick match ever. I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of Elimination Chamber matches after this. I do like the one in New Year's Revolution 2005 better than this. You know, the one with Batista, Orton, Triple H, Shawn Michaels as a referee. But this is a close second. I mean, a lot of people think this is the best match in Survivor Series history, and it's certainly up there. It's certainly in the conversation. But obviously, started out with Triple H and RVD, and this is a perfect match with RVD. Great environment from him. He got to show his stuff. Did a roll of thunder on the steel on the outside. Did a great Spider-Man spot. Obviously, probably the most memorable thing for all the wrong reasons happened in this match. Triple H was on the mat. RVD went up the pod. And he's going to do a 5-star frog splash, but of course, from RVD standing on the pod to the top of the chamber, he couldn't really stand upright because there wasn't enough room. So if there wasn't really enough room for RVD to do a proper 5-star frog splash, so he just came down. But as he came down, his leg went right on Triple H's throat and crushed his larynx. I mean, it It really is a disgusting spot because RED really does come down like a ton of bricks, and all that weight lands on Triple H's throat and crushes his larynx. I mean, holy fuck! I can't even imagine how painful that would be. Just it's quite scary to think just how painful that was. So Triple H obviously could hardly breathe, but tough SOB he is. Got to give him that. I mean, this is the same guy who finished a match with a torn fucking quad twice. Yeah, plural. He tore both quads in his career. So Triple H continued the match, and obviously, as it whittled down, all the guys came in, and then a major fuck up happened. Major fuck up. So number 5 was supposed to be Shawn Michaels, and number 6 was supposed to be Kane, but then they went for the thing, and then they accidentally opened the wrong pod, so I don't know what happened. Obviously, a production blunder or something, whatever. But Kane's pod accidentally opened instead of Shawn Michaels. So then here's Kane coming in. Now obviously the guys had planned the match beforehand, and obviously so now Kane coming in botched that up. So they had to pretty much improvise. And awesome story in Jericho's book. They were going to plan to do a spot where Kane threw Jericho through the glass, but then they said no, and then obviously Jericho's decided he was going to do it, because obviously they needed to do something to get the match back on track. So Kane goes to Jericho, throw me through the pod, and then Kane was like, too fucking right, I'm throwing you through the pod, as though it was Jericho's fault. So he chucked Jericho through the glass pod. That looked sick. I mean, cool visual though. Then obviously eventually Shawn Michaels comes in the match, so then they get the match back on track. All the while Triple H is struggling with his crushed larynx. Then obviously it came down to Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I mean, in the build-up, you knew that that was going to happen, wasn't it? I mean, as cool as the other guys being there was, you think none of the other 4 guys really had a chance going in. It was going to be down to Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and that was an exciting finale between these two. Great stuff. Shawn Michaels did a elbow drop off the pod. I think he kicked out of a pedigree, then Triple H went for another pedigree. Shawn Michaels backdropped him. Shawn hits the super kick, and then Shawn Michaels becomes a world heavyweight champion in Madison Square Garden. And that was a cool moment. He gone for all those years to have the reputation like Shawn Michaels did, to then be a born again Christian, completely turn his life around, make a big comeback, and then become the world heavyweight champion again. Now, this was the last title run in Shawn's career, and it was only a brief one as well, because he dropped the title back at Armageddon to Triple H, and then never had a WWE World Heavyweight title run again. But really cool moment to end a great match and a great pay-per-view. And don't worry, a couple of weeks we'll talk more about Survivor Series 2002, trust me. And now we're down to the top 2. Number 2, I'm going to go with 1995 Survivor Series main event. No holds barred match for the World Wrestling Federation title. Diesel versus Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, in a shitstorm that was 1995, there are some gem of matches out there to watch, and this is definitely one of them. One of the last pay-per-views of the year. Survivor Series, the last of the big 4. In a no holds barred match, Bret Hart, Diesel for the World Wrestling Federation title. I mean, I have a soft spot for the Bret Hart Diesel matches. I feel they're some of my favourite matches of that era to watch. And I just love the chemistry these two guys have. So there's actually quite a backstory here, really. So this goes all the way back to the 1994 King of the Ring. That time Bret Hart was the world champion, Diesel was the Intercontinental champion, and Diesel, I guess, was the next big project of Vince McMahon. So obviously at this time Hogan was completely out the picture now. He'd been gone for a year, but then he jumped to the rival WCW, so Hulk Hogan wasn't coming back. Obviously the steroid trial was happening right around this time. So Vince was trying to get out of jail, make sure he didn't go to jail, which he didn't, and then he was going to try and rebuild his company. And obviously Vince's mentality was still big guys, and the biggest guy on the roster was Diesel, near a 7-foot guy, about 315 pounds. He was the Intercontinental champion, and he had his first major match facing Bret Hart at the 1994 King of the Ring. So I guess that match was really like a test for Diesel to see if he could hang with a main event guy like Bret Hart. And they had a great match, which obviously went to a fuck finish, which I probably explained before. Diesel had the match won, then Jim Neidhart came in, attacked Diesel, and caused a disqualification. So, no conclusive winner. Then, of course, Diesel goes from strength to strength there. Then we had the whole thing of Survivor Series 1994. Bob Backlund becomes the World Wrestling Federation champion. And that match barely missed the cut. That would have been number 6. And then a few days later, Madison Square Garden, a freshly turned Diesel beats Bob Backlund in 8 seconds to become the World Wrestling Federation champion. And then went on a year-long title reign, but this along the way, his first major title defense at the 1995 Royal Rumble was against former champion Bret Hart, and then he had another awesome match, albeit with another inconclusive finish. So it's ended up being a double disqualification when heel Shawn Michaels, Owen Hart, Bob Backlund, Jeff Jarrett, the roadie. Was he someone else? It was definitely those 5 guys. Shawn, Owen, Backlund, Jarrett, roadie. I don't think there was anyone else. I don't think so. I could be wrong. All ran in causing a double disqualification. So Bret and Diesel had 2 matches now, and neither with a conclusive finish. So then Diesel went on to the rest of his title reign, and obviously I don't want to go into much detail now because it's being talked about, but Diesel's title reign is not remembered as a success, but a lot of that's not really Diesel's fault. I would suggest that, obviously, because the WWF was so bad in 1995, I mean, obviously, you younger guys complain about WWE now, and yes, the WWE now is terrible, but try going back and being a kid in 1995 and putting up with this horse shit. I mean, WWE is not sunk to 1995 levels yet. I emphasise the word yet. But I would say anyone who was in that position would have struggled to draw as champion. Because I think the whole company was doing bad. They were so behind the times, the product sucked. So I think you put anyone in there, Diesel's position really, and they probably wouldn't have done much better than Diesel. But then of course, obviously, they fucked the Diesel character up as well because he got over as this cool, badass guy. Then they made him this goody two-shoes babyface, which was so passé in 1995. I mean, this was at the time that ECW was really exploding. And then about a year away from the NWO and stuff like that. Ugh. So if they kept Diesel either as a heel champion or a babyface with some attitude, I feel he would have done a lot better. Then I thought a lot of his opponents left a lot of desire. I mean, a few of the Sid was fine, but SummerSlam he faced King Mabel really, and I think that's a really overlooked one as well, because obviously Vince was having Diesel wrestle guys either as tall as him or heavier than him. And the thing with Kevin Nash, Diesel, limited workout, a limited moveset. So you put him in there for a guy like King Mabel, and obviously what Diesel's main move, power maneuvers, right? So you put him in there with King Mabel, he can't jackknife King Mabel, he can't side slam Mabel, none of that. So obviously the match is going to stink, isn't it? So, but Vince persevered, and then Diesel had a year-long reign as the WWF champion, the longest reign of the 1990s. Then here we are, Survivor Series is coming up, and WWF President Gorilla Monsoon had named Bret Hart a #1 contender for the World Wrestling Federation champion. I'm pretty sure he did that before the In Your House show in October 1995, Diesel and the British Bulldog, but Diesel defeated the British Bulldog, retained the title. So now we were going to get the 3rd match in the trilogy, Bret Hart versus Diesel, at Survivor Series for the WWF Championship. But Gorilla Monsoon correctly noted that those 2 matches both ended in inconclusive finishes, so we didn't have a definitive winner and definitive loser. So Monsoon decided this time this match was going to be no disqualifications, no count out. One way or another, we were going to have a definitive winner, Bret Hart versus Diesel. And as a kid, I was so excited for this as well, because obviously I was so behind Bret in this match. I mean, obviously, Bret was my guy. I was really desperate for Bret to win the championship back. And obviously, this was a time. It's been a long time. I think it's one of the very first no-holds-barred matches on the WWF pay-per-view. Probably not the first, but one of the first. Obviously, Later on, the Attitude Era became a thing. This obviously no DQ matches became the norm, really. But I think the two ones that really got the ball rolling were this one, and then in 1996, Diesel and Shawn Michaels in Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. So this was cool now. So we had to have a winner, and I was so excited for this match. And this match was a masterclass in my opinion. Just an awesome story from start to finish. Even the start of the match where both were trying to psych each other out by taking the turnbuckle pads off. And they told a magnificent story, really. You got the wrestler Bret Hart, the puncher Diesel. Who was going to win? Because I always loved the fact that they saw that, yeah, Bret was smaller than Diesel, but Bret's a more skilled wrestler, so if Bret can get Diesel down the mat, work over his legs and all that, Bret can win. So if Bret can keep Diesel down, obviously on the mat they're both the same size, but obviously when they're standing up, getting vertical, Diesel's going to have the advantage. So, and I just thought it was great how Bret could be a foot smaller than Diesel, yet be the aggressor in the match at times, and the fans would actually buy it. So it's a really cool story told. I mean, some great spots in particular. I love the spot where Bret tied Diesel's legs together with tied a big knot here. So there you go. How do you keep a 7-foot guy down? Tie his legs together, and then Bret started beating Diesel with the chair, getting more aggressive. But then Diesel eventually got out of it and then got the advantage again. So it's a fantastic match. I mean, obviously awesome selling by both guys as well. And obviously, I think the spot this match is most memorable for is the table spot, which was well, I think the first one was Hardy Race going through the table at like it's a Saturday Night Main Event in 1988. But as far as pay-per-views, so this was the first big table spot. So Bret was on the ring apron, Diesel fling Bret off the ring apron, and then Bret landed on the announcer's table on the outside, which that was an amazing spot, and the fans were so shocked as well. And I love the visuals, all like bunch of fans getting out the seats to run to the scene to see if Bret was alright, because he really did it in a way where you couldn't see it coming. So it kind of looked, so Bret did it in a way that it looked like it was an accident that it wasn't supposed to happen. And that was just a great spot. I mean, and then the ending as well, awesome ending in my opinion. So Diesel got Bret back in the ring. Diesel was going to go for the jackknife, and then Bret just slumped to the mat. And then Diesel was starting to show compassion for Bret. And then in that split second that Diesel hesitated, Bret Hart rolled him over in a small package and beat him. So, what I love about some of these Bret matches is Bret would win a lot of his big matches by the skin of his teeth. And I think that's one of the reasons I identified with Bret, because obviously Bret wasn't a dominating, hulky guy like Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior, where he would dominate his opponents and beat them, or even someone like The Undertaker, who was seen as super strong. Bret would struggle to attain his victories. I mean, there was stuff like this, the one where WrestleMania 10, where he immediately outlasted Yokozuna, because Yokozuna fell off the ropes and then Bret capitalised on the mistake. And then now Bret was a 3-time World Wrestling Federation champion, and then Diesel finally snapped. It's seemingly tired of playing this nice guy character, started smacking around referees. He hit Bret Hart with 2 jackknives. Then he obviously stood over him with the belt and all that. And this was the start of the tweener Diesel was over the next few months, then before becoming a full-blown heel in February of 1996. And I've always said this, and I'll say it again. Diesel from this time after Survivor Series till he left the company, that was a way more effective and over than Diesel when Diesel was a world champion. I mean, if he was this Diesel when he was a champion, I feel he would have probably had a more successful title reign. But wonderful match, it really was. Absolutely loved this match. If you haven't seen this match, you've got to definitely check it out. And coming in number 1, I think most people knew what this was going to be before they even clicked the video, didn't they? Survivor Series 1996, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, again in Madison Square Garden. So, yep, this match for me, the best match ever at the Survivor Series history. I mean, obviously this is kind of a match that kind of gets overlooked a little bit, because the WrestleMania 13 match was so iconic and amazing. But this match was a classic, people. don't sleep on that. This match was an absolute classic. So, a year after winning the title of Survivor Series, Bret was in another big match, at this time with emerging superstar Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, quick backstory, because I have explained this before in the Fave 5 Rivalries video. I've probably talked about it in other videos as well. So, obviously after WrestleMania 12, Bret Hart drops the WWF title to Shawn Michaels, and then takes a hiatus from wrestling in the WWF. So, Bret had been with the WWF consistently since 1984. And then for many years before that, wrestling his dad's Stu Stampede promotion. And he hadn't really had a break in all that time now. Bret was turning 39 in 1996, so the body needed a bit of a break, didn't it, really? So Bret was off television for all this time. Although Bret was still working a few select international tours, because Vince asked him to. And around that time, obviously, there was another transition, really. A lot of new guys were emerging, like Goldust, Mankind, Vader. And one of the guys that signed with the company late 1995 was this guy named Steve Austin. So obviously Austin had his run in WCW, stunning Steve Austin. Don't want to talk about that too much, but obviously the famous story, he got fired by Eric Bischoff over the phone. And then he went to ECW for a little while, cut some amazing promos, then signed with the WWF. And what was the WWF's grand plan for this hot new star, Stone Cold Steve Austin? Were they going to put him in the main event? Were they going to give him a big push right away? Were they going to let him cut the awesome promos cut in ECW? No. They were going to call him the Ringmaster and have Ted DiBiase as his manager. So, if you think it was all an instant for Stone Cold Steve Austin, think again. I mean, he started out as a bastard fucking Ringmaster with Ted DiBiase as his manager. He was basically a mute. He didn't really talk. DiBiase was going to do the talk, because believe it or not, Vince and the WWF didn't think Stone Cold Steve Austin could talk. Just how ironic, eh? So that shows that Vince had never ever seen any of Austin's ECW promos. But anyway, then later on, time goes on, Stone Cold morphs out the Ringmaster into Stone Cold Steve Austin. Then eventually Ted DiBiase jumps to WCW, creates a great opportunity, because Austin dumps DiBiase as his manager. Then obviously wins the 1996 King of the Ring, does the Austin 316 thing, and then that kind of turned into a big deal, didn't it? But I'll say the biggest myth out there is that Stone Cold did Austin 316 and then was instantly a superstar. That is not really the case at all. Just to put this into perspective, Austin 316 happened in June. Then we are in August, SummerSlam 1996, the next major pay-per-view, and Steve Austin's wrestling Yokozuna on the free-for-all. So, obviously the free-for-all is the equivalent of the kickoff show nowadays, so there you go. And then obviously, summer 1996, Bret's contract expired. WCW approached Bret with a big deal for $2.8 million. Now, Eric Bischoff has since denied making this offer, but sorry Bischoff, we know you're lying, we know you're full of shit here. You did offer Bret that contract. Then obviously Bret comes back to Vince. Vince offers Bret a 20-year contract, which ironically would have only expired 2 years ago. So then Bret comes back to the WWF on Raw, and then, because in the meantime Stone Cold was talking shit about him, calling him out, challenging him, and one of the greatest lines ever, he goes, "If you put the letter S in front of Hitman, you got my exact opinion of Bret Hart." I just love that, awesome stuff. So then Bret comes back and accepts the challenge of, in Bret's own words, the best wrestler in the WWF today, Stone Cold Steve Austin, at Madison Square Garden. So Bret's big comeback match is going to happen at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden, where Bret had some great history in that building. Two significant ones, really, winning his first Intercontinental title from Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 1991, and then 3 years later becoming the World Wrestling Federation champion for the second time, beating Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10. So now he's coming back to face Stone Cold, and sorry, this was right around the time the Stone Cold character's really taken off. I mean, in the build-up for some of those black and white promos from Austin, they were about a minute long, but they were just so great, and I feel like some of that was some of the seeds planned for the Attitude Era. I really do. Just fantastic stuff. Because 1996, looking back now, it is such a weird time. If you look back and watch some shows from 1996, I mean, they're clearly trying to change the company a little bit and go rougher and edgier, but they don't go all the way. So, for example, the Pillman's Got a Gun episode on Raw, you've got that amazing edgy storyline, but you've also got stuff like the Sultan versus Aldo Montoya and Tail Hopper and shit like that. And obviously, also, like, around the same time, you've got the super intense rivalry between Mankind and The Undertaker. Awesome stuff. But then you've got the Godwins fighting the Body Donners, you know. But so it took a while, really, for WWE to embrace a new style. And it wasn't really till 1997 that the more cartoony aspects of the company went away. But, yeah, look, I just love the build-up of this match. And what a fantastic match this was, I mean. Just a fantastic wrestling match. Because I don't think Steve Austin gets enough credit for how good of a wrestler he was. Especially early in his career, when he was still Steve Austin. Then the first year or two of Stone Cold, he was a fantastic wrestler. Then, of course, obviously, he got his neck injury, then had to modify his style a little bit. But before that, he was one of the absolute best technical wrestlers in the world. I mean, he went against Bret Hart and he really matched him all the way. I mean, he had a fantastic, told an amazing story, and cut a great pace, sort of great twists and turns. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful match, and really. And I think this is probably the match that got the ball rolling for Stone Cold, because of course he would then win the 1997 Royal Rumble, and that would lead to Bret and Austin again at WrestleMania 13. And don't worry, we will get to that match eventually. We will talk about that match, and to be fair, I can't wait to talk about that match. But this match, of course, just an absolute classic, some awesome stuff on there, and another great finish actually. So this was kind of a throwback finish, but which I'll explain. So Austin slaps on the $1 Million Dream. Looks like shit. Is Bret Hart gonna have to submit to this? But Bret used his in-ring experience, climbed up the ropes, pushed off, then flipped over backwards into a pinning combination and got the pinfall. So this was a similar finish to what they used at WrestleMania 8 of Bret and Roddy Piper, and they have done this in recent times with Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler. And I think they've done it. Oh yeah, they did it with Joe and AJ, Hell in a Cell as well. So just a great finish for me. And again, another match where Bret Hart won this match by the skin of his teeth. He didn't dominate Austin, he didn't destroy Austin and then beat him. But they told the story that Austin was more of a match for Bret, but then Bret used his in-ring experience to just about sneak out the victory. So Austin essentially made one big mistake and it cost him the match. And I just love that Austin walking out, staring down Bret with the message saying, "This ain't over, this is not over." So, and obviously it wasn't, because that led to awesome stuff later on. And for me, still the best match ever at Survivor Series. Elimination match or otherwise, just one of the best matches of 1996, one of the best matches of both men's careers, one of the best WWF matches at Madison Square Garden, you name it. This match was the shit. Awesome match. Absolute classic. And that's, if I recommend any match in Survivor Series history, it's got to be this one. So that's a wrap, guys. And I just want to, before I go, I just want to make one more point clear. I just want to reiterate that I'm not reviewing Crown Jewel. But to be fair, I wasn't going to review it anyway, because obviously all these pay-per-views and all that. And I actually nearly didn't do Evolution, but I just happened to, because obviously the clocks went back in England on Saturday night. So this pay-per-view actually started at 11 o'clock at the night for me, instead of the usual 1 o'clock in the morning. So, and I'm glad I watched it because I love that show, but I'm not doing Crown Jewel. And for you guys, I'm just going to say, for you guys, it's entirely up to you what you do. I mean, if you're morally against it and you don't feel comfortable watching it, don't watch it. You don't have to. If you want to boycott it, boycott it. But if you feel comfortable watching it, watch it. I mean, I think it's up to every individual person what to do. And I'm not going to judge. If any people are going to watch and review it, then that's fine with me. I'm not going to judge you. And it was obviously now Brian and AJ is not happening on this show, happening on SmackDown, which I haven't seen yet, because I literally just woke up and did this video. So Now it's going to be AJ and Joe, so I'll probably watch DX versus Undertaker Kane at some point, just out of curiosity, but I'm not going to watch the show. I'm definitely not going to watch it live anyway, because I'll be working when it happens live anyway. And I'm not, so just to make it clear, so no one asks like later on, I'm not going to be reviewing Crown Jewel. It's not going to happen. So thanks for watching, guys. Next week, of course, Survivor Series elimination matches. And until next time, peace.